Good morning, everyone. And now for something completely different. Today we're going to look at ways that you can spring clean your site, sprucing up its look and feel, efficiency, and all-around performance in a few easy steps. Christine Masters, our product development director, has put together a great selection of tips and tricks and will walk you through the presentation. In the room we also have Teresa Nelson, our director of business development, Paige Ruba, a marketing specialist at Town News, and I'm Aaron Gillette, marketing director here at townnews.com. On this fine spring morning, I know we're all eager to do some cleanup, so let's get started. Take it away, Christine.
Awesome, thank you. So kind of the inspiration for today's webinar is just, obviously, it's a good time of the year. You're cleaning out your closets and your refrigerator and whatever else people do with spring cleaning. And we were kind of having a discussion in the office about, that this is actually potentially a good time for you to do some kind of spring cleaning things with your site as well. And we were like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's put together a list and just walk people through. If we had a site and if we would make recommendations to our customers, what are some things that you should look at a yearly, maybe quarterly basis? These would be really good things to put together and talk about to our customers. And so it took a while to we worked with a lot of different departments and put everything together, and we have a lot of different ideas. So these are going to be things that touch many different types of roles within your organization. But we think that the list that we put together at the very end was very useful, and we just wanted to make sure to walk everybody through it and share it with you. So a couple of the topics that we're going to go through today, just looking at some of the blocks that we have currently, and just a couple of really easy ways to refresh and renew your front page without making major redesign changes or any kind of major redesign. There are things that you can do to kind of make it look a little bit better and freshen it up. So that's something that we'll talk about today. Keeping the site up to date, things that you can delete that you are no longer using, looking at your admin accounts to make sure that they are valid, different ways to look at if you are monetizing the site fully as much as possible. Those are all things that we can kind of talk about. Obviously, looking at the site itself and whether it's mobile ready and SEO friendly, we're going to talk about. So those are just a couple of the things we'll go through. And so I'll go ahead and get started. First off, I already mentioned this a little bit, but we come out with new blocks maybe every couple months, every month. And a lot of them can be used for essentially the front page of the site, your top stories or updated stories area, where just swapping out a block on the front page really makes your site look much different. I wanted to share with you this bit.ly link at the bottom here. If you kind of copy, I've got maybe 5 or 6 different bit.ly links throughout the presentation that lead to either documentation pages or other pages that have more information about these topics. So this is one of them, BLOX templates, and that will lead to our documentation site that has a list of, it's called our template selector for Flex templates, and it will show you all of the different types of things that we've come out in Flex. And then of course there's also the Zen template selector that you can look through as well. But this is just a good idea to keep up to date on the blocks that are available, and then obviously just to consider swapping something out. So I have a couple of ideas that I put together that I wanted to share with you that are some of the things that we've come out with recently that are good examples of things that you could use on the front page. Again, very easily just swap it out to show a different type of presentation on your front page. So this is called the Mosaic block that was released maybe several months ago, but it shows different different quantities of photos, and you can set the number of stories or photos that it will show. And it actually looks quite different if you have 2 versus 3 versus 5 showing up here. So you can kind of experiment with the different numbers of stories you want to show up on this. But this is a really great example of a block that looks unique and stylized well for desktop, but it also has a really nice look and feel on mobile. And there's a lot of different things that you can change in this block. You can change the hover effect, you can change how the text looks, and then of course like I said, I mentioned before, how many photos are displayed. So this is a really good example. We've got a lot of our customers that are switching over to use this on the front page, again, because it looks, refreshed and a little bit different. The feature block, this is another one that's been out for a little while, but it's a really nice display block for actually showing a photo with the text on top of it. And again, there's a lot of different ways that you can style this. At the top, I kind of have like a full photo. I cropped the photo, and then in this particular case, I put this in a region that spanned across the entire page. So this particular photo went, full width of the browser side to side. And again, it looked good on mobile. But that's an example of, if you have a special section coming out, or if there's a really big story that's happening, this would be a really great way to just really capture the top of the page and make it look interesting. This is another implementation of it, more of a newsy implementation where, I've got the title showing up at the top, I still have the photo, and then I've got the content that goes on top. And I've just decided in this example to have the lead of the story showing up as well. So again, that's just a good way to show these on the front page. Another specific feature that we launched several months ago is an option called additional content that's available on some of our display type blocks. And choosing a horizontal additional content display on this feature block actually gives me these CNN style headlines below this main picture. So, and this is very similar to how CNN does most of their kind of breaking news on the front page. And this is something where, again, as part of kind of a refresh that you could look into, this could be your top story presentation on the front page, or it might be a special implementation that you're doing just for breaking news, just for National Prayer Day, etc. So this is just another example of using this feature block and playing with the different type appearance tabs and going through all the different features and having putting the things together in the right way to get the look and feel that you need. This is one of our oldest blocks, but I've actually talked to a couple of customers who were using this for developing news and breaking news. And this is the summary block with a medium-sized photo. And then again, this is actually showing related content. In this particular case, it's showing the siblings. So these are things that are related to, so you might have an election story, and these are other election stories that you're promoting in a grouping on your front page. So you could have either developing news or Super Tuesday results, and then a grouping of stories that are built together through the summary block to show that on the front page. There's also, just to mention, that we actually can do background colors on these things. So if you wanted to package this together and then put it like with a gray background or a blue background, you have a really nice pulled together presentation, again, which could be part of a mini quarterly redesign type thing that you do on your site by just swapping out some blocks, or it could be a special presentation for a particular story. And then lastly, this was another thing that we had come out recently, which was the ability to put a map on certain blocks. There's probably 5 or 6 different blocks that have this capability. You can find it in the appearance tab of the block there's actually a little grouping there called map, and then you can turn on or off the map from that area. And then what this will do is, if the assets have location information, they will then actually plot it on the map together. So again, this is a really great example for something where maybe there's a bicycle, what is that called, tour thing? Tour race, bicycle race, I don't know. And Tour de France, yeah. If you're having a Tour de France in Nebraska, this is a really great way to kind of pitch in different stories that happened at different locations around an area. If you don't have a location, it'll say, you can see on here where it says 8 items without location information. Obviously, it looks better if you have them all with location information, which is easy to do when you're packaging things together. But this could be something where if you have a police blotter or anything like that that has location-specific information, you can add that location information to the asset. It's in the other tab and then the location accordion, and then plot that onto this map. And it looks great, and it's really useful to users, and is actually a good experience for the users as well. So that was the refresh with blocks. Another idea that we had that we think is a good idea for people to just take an accounting of. Again, we're thinking a couple times a year, this is a good idea. For those of you using Ad Manager, there's a real easy way to look at the kinds of ads that you are using on your site. And essentially, in Ad Manager, there's a spot that says positions. And you can switch to the position tab, and it shows you actually all of the used positions and unused positions on your site. So what I would recommend is actually you can go over to status over here and then pull down to assigned, and it will show you every position and every section that is actually populated by an ad. So the thing that this will help is if you have a good understanding of where you're supposed to be running ads right now, you'll immediately start seeing the holes that I don't have something assigned to the leaderboard ad for run of site. And that might be something that you'll be able to rectify. I don't have something assigned to the bottom leaderboard or to the photo gallery page. And you'll immediately see the things that are missing, and you'll be able to rectify that. And again, the idea behind that is just to make sure that your site is fully monetized and that there's nothing that has fallen off either accidentally or because an ad expired, where you have an ad spot that is empty for no reason. And sometimes, obviously you might purposefully have an empty ad spot, but this way it gives you a good accounting of specifically everything that has an active ad, and you'd be able to see the things that are not represented there and then take account of those. Re-examine your navigation. Surprisingly, this is something that we do get customer support calls about, and we do have, just looking through sites, we see this now and then where things haven't been updated. And this is just an example. There's a couple of different situations where this happens more often. For example, there's something called an auto navigation for the navigation block, where essentially you can pick an item in the URL map, and then the navigation tool will auto-populate that drop down with everything underneath that specific URL. So it's a really great way to do, for example, special sections or different types of special promotions. So all you'd have to do is essentially go create that new URL, and then you put all your stories on it, and it automatically shows up in the navigation panel. So that's a really great way to just save time and to automate things. But you have to watch to make sure that there's nothing in that folder that shouldn't be there. And so what can happen is you might have something where elections 2012 is still there, but that's kind of old now. So you might want to make sure that that's updated with the newest information. If you are currently doing auto-population and you want to do a more managed list, there's a way to do that very easily within that navigation builder. You just switch to pick and choose the ones that you want to show. You can also reorder them, and that will make sure that that navigation is up to date and as fresh as possible, and that all the links work. So it's just, again, a really good time to look through all of the sub-navigation and make sure that everything is the way that you want it, and it's just a good time to check on that. So this is an important one that I think a majority of our customers are really taking account of their mobile site and how their site looks on mobile. I think that a large majority of our site now have, I don't know, you might know the numbers better than me, Erin, but that we have a lot of sites now that are actually more than 50% mobile traffic.
We are seeing 40 to 50%
Yeah.
on a lot of our sites, and our own site included.
So, I mean, number one, check out and see, you can look in our web statistics or Google Analytics to see what are the specific numbers for your site. I would be surprised if there weren't many of you that actually have surpassed 50% mobile traffic, especially if you include tablet and mobile, which
Right.
depending on, Google Analytics kind of separates them into 3 different things. So it depends on whether or not you wanted to include those or not. So,
Not
but
desktop.
correct, yeah. So you usually have phone traffic, mobile traffic, tablet traffic, and desktop traffic. So, but yeah, I mean, so a lot of our customers now, if you combine phone and tablet into a mobile category, are actually having more mobile traffic than they do desktop. And a lot of our customers don't take a look on a daily basis at what their mobile site looks like, what a majority of your users are looking at. So one of the things that we've built into Blocks is a really easy way to, especially in the Flex templates, to see what your specific site looks like in mobile mode. So you would go to the block editor, excuse me, and there's actually a panel in the block editor that says set view size, and then you can actually just come down and choose extra small, which will show you your phone version of the site. And then you can look at, so again, I was kind of talking about the mobile block, or I'm sorry, the Mosaic block, and how it has a really nice mobile display. You'll actually be able to see in this mode what each of your blocks looks like in the mobile presentation. We actually have a couple of our blocks in Flex have something called a compact mode, which actually has you can kind of choose between a large display in mobile or a small compact mode display in mobile for the same block. And then we just kind of modify the CSS based on how you would like that to show. So there are some things that you can change specifically for mobile to make sure that mobile looks correct and that it has the correct ordering of stories and the correct presentation. So like you want to make sure that your top stories and your main stories of the day are showing up at the top, and that the appropriate kind of flow of stories towards the bottom of the page, that all of that is kind of working how you want. So you'd be able to come in here and preview that using the view size in the block editor, and then make changes how you want, and then expand it out to tablet, expand it out to medium laptops, expand it out to desktop, and then make sure that none of the changes have negatively impacted any of the other sizes. And that's just a really great way to make sure that, again, you start with kind of a mobile first look and then expand out to desktop, and just make sure that you are looking at how everything looks in mobile as well as on desktop. So.
Sorry to interrupt here. We did have a question come in. The user isn't seeing a set view size tab in their block editor. They only have the hide borders and collapse.
Yeah, if you are on Zen templates, the main Zen desktop templates are not responsive, so there's no point in showing the view size on those.
It's the same view everywhere.
It's the same view.
Right.
It's just squished, cut off, I'll say. But if you are on the Zen templates and you have Touch 5, you can go to your Touch 5 folder. So you go basically to the URL for Touch 5, and then you should be seeing the view size on the Touch 5 templates area. So.
Just a reminder, I may have forgotten to mention this during the intro, but if you do have questions, feel free to drop them into the question box, and in most cases we'll hold off on answering until the end of the program, but thank you.
Awesome, yep. So another great thing that this is a great feature that we came out with a couple months ago, and I don't think that, I think a lot of our customers haven't quite learned about this, or maybe knew what specifically it does, but I thought this was a kind of a good time to touch on this. And it's a great example of how this new feature can make the implementation and the management of your site more efficient. So I thought it would be a good point to mention that at this webinar, where we're kind of cleaning stuff up, making stuff more efficient, updating stuff as part of the spring cleaning stuff. So this is in subscription. So if you're using the subscription product, we have a new feature called rule profiles. And essentially what a rule profile is, it's putting together a grouping of URLs that then can be applied to a service. It used to be that on each service, you would go through that service and say which URLs were affected by this service, or so which URLs did this service apply to. And then what would happen is if you had, let's say you have 10 different services which are in effect on your site, and you wanted to add or remove a URL, you would actually have to go to each of your services and then remove that URL from the service. And so we kind of worked with a lot of different customers who had minor inconsistencies just due to management of all of these different URLs, minor inconsistencies between their services, or they didn't quite understand why this page showed these services but this page didn't, and it was just because there's a lot of confusion between which URLs they had set on which services. In addition, there was difficulty removing subscription from certain URLs if you had some kind of emergency. So what we've done with rule profiles is, again, it's just a grouping of URLs that can then be applied to a service. And you can have one rule profile that applies to all 10 or whatever number of your services. And then if you have a URL to add or remove, you just have to add or remove it from that one rule profile, and it affects all of the services that it is assigned to. So, I mean, it's a really great way to more efficiently manage your subscription, and that you can add or subtract those things. The second part of this that is really useful, and again, we've had a lot of people ask us about this, especially in the cases of an emergency, if there was a fire or there's a sort of flooding going on and they want to make their site free to users for a 24-hour period, or for maybe even a couple of days or during this emergency process. The easiest way to do that on your site is to make sure that you are using rule profiles through all of your subscription services. And then if you basically go into that rule profile and you click on Other, then you can actually disable the rule profile without changing any of the URLs with a single click on the button. And what happens if you disable that rule profile is that those services are no longer applied to any URLs for that rule profile, and then essentially those pages become free. And then when you want to re-implement the paywall, you just remove that disable on that rule profile and they come into effect. The really nice thing about that is that during the time that rule profile is disabled, those services are still active, so customers can still subscribe and manage their services if needed without having to log into the site. So just a quick review of that, because I know that this one's a little bit more complicated, but again, rule profiles is a grouping of URLs that will apply to all of your services, and then it's a real easy way to turn off subscription paywall in case of an emergency or something else. If the paper didn't go out on time and you want it to be free for the morning, it's a real easy way to turn off subscription without handicapping it and then being able to turn it back on later. If you need help implementing this, feel free to call our customer support. They're very good at kind of walking people through this. There's an easy way. We built in some tools so that you can migrate and collapse services more easily into rule profiles. And again, it's just a really nice way to make your site more efficient and clean stuff up as part of your spring cleaning process. So this is another one that is a great idea, just to make sure that you don't have any unnecessary things kind of clogging up your site. In the block editor, we have something called the block library, where all of your blocks, probably for all time, are existing in this block library. And we have some customers that have gone through 2 or 3 different redesigns that they might have even done themselves. And a lot of those blocks are still remaining in their block library and are possibly not even being used at all and may not have been used for years. So we actually built in a new tool to help you find unused blocks. And essentially you just, in the block library, in the block editor, you can actually, there's a search field, and usually that's where you search for tags or for the name of a certain block. We have kind of a quick key to search for, don't search for the quotes, but just search for placed :no. And that will find all of the blocks that are not in use on your site. And then what you can do is you can actually see what URL map they're on, where they're assigned, or where they're, what kind of tags they have. And you'll see that some of them, if they were assigned somewhere, they'll have this little map, which will show you where they're assigned. But all the unassigned ones will show without a map, so you know that those are not assigned. So if you searched for placed no, you would actually then be able to go through the list of them, and with the appropriate permission of the managers of your site, obviously, you could actually delete the ones that you didn't feel were relevant anymore, or that were not in use anymore. One thing that I would recommend, obviously, before you permanently delete anything, you can actually export those blocks. So again, take maybe 10 of them that you think that you can for sure get rid of, and select all of those 10, export them, save them on your desktop, save them in a shared place in your location, just in case you need them back sometime later. But then you'll be able to actually delete those blocks that you haven't used in 3 years, that are probably never coming back, and it'll help clean up your site. It'll help make that block library more efficient. You'll be able to find things more easily in the block library, and it can really help you out, especially sometimes when, like I said, you know that you've gone through 2 redesigns, and you know that everything tagged redesign 2014 can probably go. Do a quick review, export them, and then delete the ones you no longer need. SEO. This is something we talk about a lot, but I just wanted to quickly mention this. This bit.ly link will take you to a document on our help site that actually has several different steps that is a good idea for you to go through to make sure that you're getting the maximum benefits of SEO that we've put together. And a lot of those things are just, that in itself can be its own spring cleaning, that to look through that list of best practices and just make sure that you kind of have all of the boxes checked. Make sure that your site name matches what is set up for you in Google News. Make sure that you have Webmaster Tools set up. Make sure you're not getting errors in Webmaster Tools. There's a bunch of different things that are available in that document that you might not be doing on a daily or monthly basis, but it's probably a good idea to walk through that a couple times a year and make sure that everything's running as smoothly as possible. Again, check out that bit.ly link, and it will have a really long document walking you through very technically detailed list of the various SEO best practices, and that will help you just check that out. And again, this is just something to do a couple times a year, and spring cleaning is a great time to take a look at that as well. Site notifications. We have a bunch of different places in BLOX that will send emails to administrators if something happens on the site. They're notified of new calendar events. They're notified of pending business approval notifications. There's a whole bunch of different things that BLOX will keep you up to date about throughout your entire site, depending on the products that you're using from Town News. So what we did was we put together a page that just has a list of, I think it's maybe a little more than 20 different places where there are different emails that can be set up to receive notifications. So it's a really good idea just to spend a couple minutes to walk through that list and see who is the admin that is set up in these various notification panels to receive emails and updates for your site. I would not be surprised if there were a couple of places where Janet, who used to work there 3 years ago, is set up to receive your calendar notifications, and she hasn't worked there for a couple of years. So it's a great idea to do this on a at least yearly, if not quarterly basis. Just do a quick review of who is set up for your site notifications, and just make sure that the appropriate people are. Whenever an employee is added or lost, that might be a good time to make sure that they were not your main point person for business directory, etc. And speaking of staff changes, another great idea is to look in your admin panel, and this is found under the settings panel, then users, and then it'll be your user accounts for your site. What you'll do is come into this type area here and just look for the admins on your site, and then just do a quick spot check of who has admin access on your site, and whether or not they are still. You can also search for if they are enabled or not, and then you can actually do a quick spot check of who on your site has admin access and if their account is still active, and then review and make sure that, again, Janet, who left 3 months ago, is not still in your list of admins. Obviously, whenever an employee is added or removed from your site, that would be a good time, of course, to get rid of their account or disable their account. But this will just be a quick spot check to make sure that nobody is missing, and it's a real easy thing to do. Like I said, every couple months. This is a great idea. We have a great blog where we put ideas for how to get more revenue, case studies, additional ideas. We have a whole group of people now that are writing blogs on at least a weekly basis, that we have new ideas going up there all the time. So definitely make sure that you are, subscribed to that and you're checking that out on a weekly basis. And if you're not, watching that, this is a good time to make sure that you are going to get notified of these. Probably another great way is to like us on Facebook so that you'll get all of these in your Facebook feed so you can see them from there as well. But we are coming out with some really great stories now and some really great new ideas for how to help your site. So it's definitely a good idea to make sure that you're watching that.
And sign up for the newsletters as well. Those.
I think that's my.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I think I have that in here.
Well,
but
okay.
yeah, definitely sign up for the newsletters.
Yeah.
We have, again, it helps to be notified when we're doing software releases, when we have bugs or alerts or outages. Those are things that you definitely want to know about, and signing up for our newsletters is the best way to learn about that. In fact, if I were in charge of a staff, I would make it mandatory for my entire staff to sign up for all of the newsletters to make sure that they're up to date.
And all of those blog entries will go out in the newsletters as well. So that's another way to
Awesome.
stay up to date with what we're publishing. So
Yep, and if you go to that BLOX blog bit.ly link, the Stay Connected stuff is on the right-hand side, and that's a great way for you to sign up for that.
Unless you're on a phone, then it's at the bottom.
Oh,
it's
there you
responsive.
go.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. 50% probably are.
There we go.
So this is another one that is, again, just kind of a refresh thing that should be done a couple times a year probably. At Town News, we have a customer relationship management program where we have all of the contact details for all of our customers in this program. And so for each of our organizations that we work with, there is a list of people from your staff that, number one, have the ability to talk to us and to send reports or to create tickets. And number two, there are only certain people who are allowed to request password changes. And the list of your contacts are the only ones who can approve password changes. And there's other things, like maybe making hot fixes on your site or making changes to your site may need to be approved by somebody, and only the correct people that are in our CRM system can make approvals to do certain things. So it's a really good idea you can just call our customer support team and ask them to do a review of your contacts, and they'll walk through with you, okay, here's who we have for your publisher, here's who we have for your classified ad manager, here's who we have for your web programmer, and they'll actually work with you to make sure that those are up to date, that we have the right phone numbers, and that we actually have the right positions for those people, because a lot of times, she used to be ad manager, but now she's the publisher. We should know about those reflections, those changes in staff, so that we know who can approve things for what. So again, it's a good idea to do this on a couple times a year basis before you have a situation where, and I've had this happen a couple times on the after hours call, where we emergency need to change somebody's password or change the password for FTP, but nobody on the customer, there's not a lot of people on the CRM list that we can get a hold of that are able to make that approval change. Some of them don't work there anymore. Some of them are a different position. So this is a really great way to save time later on by making sure that that's all up to date. So that's all the main stuff that I have now. Just a real quick, review of this. Again, look at our blocks as they're being released. Again, if you're signing up for our notifications, you'll get updated whenever a new block is released. It's real easy to swap out a block on your front page to give it a nice, clean, refreshed look. Look at how things look in mobile, make sure things are optimized and fast on mobile. And then just go through your site in general, look at the admins, look at notifications, look at your rule profiles, look at your block editor, see if there's anything that can be optimized or old information deleted so that you have the optimum and clean and refreshed experience using blocks. If you have any issues and you would like to, have any questions about anything that I talked about, I have gone over all of these things with our customer support staff, so they should be fully prepared to talk about any of these things in more detail. Or just feel free to send us an email and we will send us a support ticket and we will help you, deal with anything in more details if needed.
Okay, a couple of questions have come in. Now would be a good time. Now would be a good time to enter a question if you do have one. The first question: if you delete a block and later want it back, can it be reloaded?
Yes, if you've exported it, then you can just take there's an import button and you can import the block that you previously deleted. So if you have, let's say you had 10 of them that you wanted to delete and you exported all 10 in a single batch, when you import them, you'll re-import all 10. So for that reason, it might be a good idea to export them separately. So you just highlight one and click on export, and it'll create a little file for that one, and then highlight the next one and create an export, and then just save them in a folder on your desk somewhere or on a server for your staff. And then, if you need to bring one back to life, you just go to export, pull in that file, and it will come back to your site. I will note that when you import something, if it was previously assigned to a section at the point when you deleted it, which hopefully you're not deleting things that are on pages, but if it was assigned to a section, it will come back to life and be placed back on that section again. So that's a kind of a good thing to note, that if you deleted your top stories block and then you brought it back in, that it'll show back up on your top stories block if it was still assigned to it at the time when you deleted it. So that's just something to know about, is that you might want to make sure that they're not placed and then export them individually to your desktop. And then if you import them, then they won't show up anywhere. If that makes sense.
Okay. For the CRM review, is it better to call in and review the CRM contacts or to open a ticket for it?
Probably either is fine. They just really appreciate to make sure that everybody's up to date. Either way will be fine, and then they'll let you know if they want to have a quick call. I will say that, if you call them on the phone, they will be able to walk that through easily. But if you have a lot of new people to add, then, obviously sending an email might be help too. So it kind of depends on the situation, but either would be totally fine.
Okay. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and we will publish it to the website probably early next week. We'll send an email out to everybody once it's processed and published. We'll send an email to our webinars list, and it will also go out in the next edition of the newsletter. And it looks like that is all for questions. If anyone has any, still feel free to type them in. I've got a little bit of a spiel on the next slide, and stay connected with us. Our documentation is available at help.bloxcms.com. It's a great, totally revamped doc site. Definitely check that out. Support is always available at 800-293-9576 or support.townnews.com. And our partner community is a great place to share ideas and learn from other townnews.com customers. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And as we mentioned earlier, we have a great selection of email communiques that you can sign up for. The bulletin, software release notes, webinar announcements, just go to townnews.com, click on the news link, and you will see the email sign up on the right-hand side of the page, or the bottom of the page if you're using a mobile device. And if anything that we've discussed today, if you don't have it, for example, Flex templates, a lot of these items were Flex specific. If you need to get on Flex, and everybody should, right?
Yep, I would highly recommend it. And just as a quick note for the Flex stuff, we've gotten some really great feedback on the Flex templates, and people moving from Zen to Flex have seen really great improvements on their site. So if you don't know what we're talking about, or if you haven't had time to look into that yet, definitely talk to your sales rep. Go ahead and submit a ticket and ask to find out more about that. We've gotten really good feedback on the Flex template so far, so we're really excited about that.
Yes, call your sales rep today.
Yep, definitely.
And that is all. No more questions have come in, so thanks everybody. Thank you for participating, and thanks for the great questions. Thanks, Christine, for putting all of this together.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next month.